your voice will always tell the truth.
When we are in a regulated space where we have true embodied authority rather than the performed power.
As a leader, your level of regulation is what is going to allow everyone else to co-regulate.
You might feel nervous, and so you're breathing very shallow. Let's see how my pitch just went up and I got faster.
As leader, you are constantly modeling with people how they get to be together.
Our voice kind of also gives us like a canary in a mine. You call your friend and your friend goes, hey.
Don't get all tied up in the words, like get all the way like together first. Hello, internet universe. Buck fists. It's happening. We are live on the interwebs. Welcome to the Resonant Leader. My name is Markwart Deveaux. This is my channel. Welcome. If you are new here, we are so glad to have you. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for the support and the love. This is a free platform out on the interwebs, and this is a great way to support small businesses. So thank you for that. On this channel, we like to explore conversations about leadership, about communication, and about inclusion. And we do that by having real conversations with real humans. And today I am super excited because I get to talk to someone I love very dearly, Miss Michelle Markwart Deveaux, who is a beautiful human and among other accolades and amazing things is also my sister. But Michelle is here because today we are talking about voice as embodied leadership. And Michelle just so happens to own a voice and performance studio. She is also a leadership consultant and the founder of the SpeakEasy Cooperative. She does amazing things to support humans in how they show up in the world. And so I'm really glad that she is here. Michelle, I could read your entire bio, but that's boring. But what do humans on the internet need to know about you and why you're the person to talk to about embodied leadership?
Oh, great. Well, I started working with the voice as a performer when I was very young and learning singing and acting and performing and essentially using your voice to communicate a story. And I was lucky enough, and the universe saw fit to kind of constantly put me in situations where I was required to embody leadership. And then, roles in corporate, roles in not-for-profit, roles in owning my own business. And the more that I learned about the physiology of the voice and what's going on in the body when the voice is produced, and then the more that I learned about the way that authentic leadership, not in like the gross, everybody uses the word authentic, but, really showing up and being true to yourself as a leader. And I started to see the connections. And then reviewing my own experiences, experience of clients, experience of teams, watching the way that the physical voice would either help or hinder a team succeed, help or hinder a leader get done what they were trying to get done in terms of mission and vision for an organization. Just watching the way that a person's voice affected the room all made me realize, I think this is a both and for a lot of leaders. And so I just boldly, whenever I do leadership consulting, always kind of weave some of that nervous system stuff in there and that voice stuff. And that's how I kind of came to it, was just connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots. I love that. I always find it interesting to hear folks' career trajectory, because when you look at a resume, it doesn't always make sense. But when you hear the story, you're like, oh, it does make sense.
Yeah.
It does make sense. So I love this. I feel like every time I talk to you, I learn something about all of the anatomy that exists, like right up in here, like between here.
Oh, I need to do a better job of bringing it also down here then.
Right. Like there's a lot going on in the body to make people sound how they sound to us. Even, I mean, we had like a good sister chat yesterday, and I learned something new about how we hear sound, and that it's not, there are multiple ways that we hear sound, which I think I intuitively knew, but then you explained science to me. It's like, oh, I already knew that. I'm so smart. But I do love this idea of thinking about voice as one of the most authentic expressions of a human being. And the way that even though we can perform authority and we can perform confidence, your voice will always tell the truth. And so I am curious about exploring that with you a little bit today.
Yeah.
So I know we have a whole bunch of like things we could talk about, but I am curious about this idea of authority and how voice helps authority, or in some ways is not congruent with authority.
Yeah.
And I know you had said something about like embodying authority versus performing it. How would you distinguish performance from true authority?
Yeah. So I think people who are in leadership positions who believe leadership is about dominance lack the sophistication to be grounded in their body, and therefore their voice will show up in ways that does not feel grounded or sound grounded to the room that they're in. So when a voice emerges from the body, we have to remember our entire body is the instrument that is creating the voice. There are things that happen automatically without our control, and there are things that happen much within our control. And that's what's really unique about the voice, is that it's this both completely in our control and both not in our control at all.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are in a regulated space where we have true embodied authority rather than the performed power, our breath tends to sit in our lower ribs rather
Mm-hmm.
than in our upper ribs. We feel centered. We might feel a sensation of what some people might call support in the pelvic floor.
Mm-hmm.
The breath comes slowly rather than being gasped in. It's more of the function of the way, I'm very oversimplifying the way that the voice works. And then the way that the vocal folds are vibrating because of the air pressure that is coming through, because of the tension or lack of tension, where the tension is in the body, in the jaw, in the tongue, in the face, all of these things contribute to authentically delivering information, authentically connecting with people, versus something that is put on in order to look like you have power or authority.
Okay.
Does that
So
make sense?
yeah. So what I heard in that is that embodied authority is what it feels like when you feel all the way together.
Yeah.
Like your breath feels spacious, you feel grounded, you feel kind of complete. I love that description of feeling kind of like centered in your pelvic floor, noticing that breath sits lower in the rib cage, all of these things, which I associate to like a sense of like calm, like when you're
Yeah.
breathing like most naturally.
Mhm.
Right, is what that sounds like to me. And when all of that is happening in the body, the voice sounds different than, say, when you are nervous, when the breath is like all up in here. All of
Mhm.
these things is going to change the way your voice comes out of your body.
Right. And so, like, for example, you might feel nervous. And so you're breathing very shallow, it's very high. And then see how my pitch just went up and I
Mhm,
got faster. So, all of these kinds of things around like your pitch and your speed and when, how slow and then how fast and all of this, they're all kind of looped into something called prosody. And how we are experiencing what is happening in ourselves and what's happening in a room, our brains instantaneously take that information and then it comes out of our mouth.
mhm, mhm.
And when any person, leader or not, is a person who feels aligned and balanced, you'll notice that they speak with a little bit more intention. They're not afraid of quiet in between their sentences. Um, they have a sense of curiosity. You might hear da 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 in their voice a lot, which is a questioning tone. And these are all ways that the nerves, the cranial nerve 10, which is like there's two nerves that innervate a motor function nerve and also autonomic nervous system situation. Again, I'm oversimplifying because we don't have a lot of time. And I'm like, get out of the science, get out of the science.
That was good stuff. I love it.
I know it's but it's a leadership tool that we can use. But the interesting thing is that if you try to perform it, I mean, this is like the actor's work, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is why, like, method acting, and I say this from the perspective of an acting teacher, this is why method acting can be so powerful, is because you actually have to put yourself in the emotional state of what is happening with the character in order to get the voice to do what the voice would do if that character was doing a thing.
Okay, so side quest. So I went to NYU and I had 2 roommates who were theater majors. And so they spent a lot of time trying to explain to me all of the different studios, and there were different ways of approaching acting. And just now, as you're explaining this, I'm like, oh, this actually sounds even more interesting now that I understand what's actually required of method acting, because it sounds like you're actually essentially tricking your nervous system
100%.
so that your body will perform as though you are in that state, because that actually completely changes what comes out of your mouth.
Yeah. Now, they don't necessarily train it like that, but I don't think they necessarily say this is what we're doing, is we're completely rewiring your nervous system.
Right. This is nervous system manipulation 101. Yeah.
Right. But functionally, what they're asking people to do is hijack the nervous system and become a different nervous system so that the voice shows up the way that the voice would in that nervous system of the character.
Yeah.
And again, oversimplification, just for all my acting and voice people out there. I understand.
You're like, don't come for me in the comments.
I know, do not come for me. We only have 30 minutes. So, but that's why I think it's so interesting. And if we are leaders, I believe one of our major responsibilities is to lead ourselves into a practice where we understand the relationship between what we are feeling and how that is going to show up in a room through our words. Because words are both intellect and wisdom. And then they're that behind the scenes, these are my feelings, this is my body, this is the state my body is in. Do I have a cold? Am I tired? Did I sleep enough last night? Are my vocal folds enlarged because maybe I screamed with my daughter at a concert last night? What are the physical things that are happening? And then what is happening in my story, in my experience, that is causing what I'm saying to be misinterpreted, feel unclear, empower the people and give the people back their own ability to make decisions for themselves? And how comfortable am I in my own position that I can show up in a way that brings comfort and allows the room to co-regulate to my comfort so they can be comfortable in their work on the team?
Yeah.
As kind of a microcosm of the leadership that's happening in the overall team.
So this piece I think is really interesting, right? This idea that as a leader, your level of regulation is what is going to allow everyone else to co-regulate. And that is something that you can't hide, because as soon as you open your mouth, it will be deeply felt. And so as we're thinking about, and I love you said, words are like this. Yes, it's intellect, but it's also all of this other system. And I'm curious because I know I often will say words are completely insufficient to actually communicate what we're trying to express.
Yeah.
And I think people get tripped up on the words when I think what's more important is context. And as we're talking about voice, it does feel like words are just one part of what you're saying when you use your voice. There's all of this context that is also being conveyed, some of which you have control over, some of which you don't. And that is imbued with all of these other things like, were you screaming at the concert last night? What is your emotional state today? Are you nervous? Are you angry? Are you tired?
Did you drink enough water?
Right. There's all of these other things that are also being communicated no matter what words are coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And people can still pick up on that, right? That is still being communicated. And so as leader, there is quite a bit of responsibility to at least work on the stuff you can control so that you create an opportunity for others to also feel all the way together when they're with you instead of not that.
And I think this is where transparency as authenticity comes in rather than the performative power as well.
Okay.
Because when we simply say, gosh, I am feeling so nervous today. We have some amazing, incredible things to talk about in this meeting. And I'm feeling a little jittery. My amygdala is going crazy and a little excited, a little jittery. And so I just want to invite you into that jitteriness with me. Maybe we start moving, but being transparent enough to say where our nervous system is at is actually a tool of leadership that not only models the behavior that you need your team to have in order to execute their tasks and their decision making, but it also immediately brings the room into co-regulation. And what I see in a lot of high stakes leadership environments is leaders who think that they can never look bad. They can never look out of sorts. They can never look nervous. They can't look, not as much in 2026, weak anymore. I do see some leaders who have been leaders for a very, very long time who have kind of came of age in leadership in the 80s and 90s, have kind of that I don't want to look weak mentality, but more the new generation of leaders is more like thinking they have to perform because that's what the previous generation of leaders did.
Yeah.
While being in great tension with the reality of our culture, which is like everybody is like on the internet all the time and there's noise and, people just don't care about what they used to care about because of how fast moving the world is. So I think re-embracing the transparency of your physical state in order to bring people permission, like kind of creates this structure for other people to be physiologically authentic and helps dismantle this like performative, very exhausting professional voice. And it's interesting because, I have a lot of people who are like, well, I just need to learn how to like deliver my presentation confidently. And then I ask some coaching questions and they're like, this isn't about my presentation. And I'm like, this is all about your presentation. Like just the fact that you don't want to talk about how you're feeling about your presentation is why this presentation is becoming hard for you to deliver well. Right?
Yeah.
Because you can't hide that.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because the more I'm hearing you talk through this, the more I'm drawn to this kind of prevailing thesis that as leader, you are constantly modeling with people how they get to be together.
Yeah.
And so if you are the first example, no matter what you're doing or saying, that does require a certain amount of responsibility for how you're showing up in your nervous system, because you can't hide that. People will feel that, and they're going to take all of their cues from you because that's how power and positionality and authority works, right? People are getting their permission, whether you voice it or not,
right,
from leadership. And so there's this huge opportunity for leaders to be more intentional about some of those controllables, regardless if they're talking about, Q2 earnings report or what we're going to have for lunch. Like there's still this responsibility of like, okay, but can you show up in a way that has people feel safe and human at the same time?
Yeah. I think you're also pointing to that like line in between leadership and management. And it's interesting how people come and say, oh, I feel like a really competent manager, but I don't really know how to be a leader. Or, man, I can lead, but I don't like managing people. And for me, leadership and management are kind of very much like the way that the voice works, that you can have one without the other. Like one of your laryngeal nerves can be shot and your voice will still work. Right? It'll work differently. But when they work together, you get this more rich experience of the voice. You get a voice that feels like it is connected, like there's closure. And these are all kind of mirroring the way that the nervous system and the nerves innervate the voice. So I know I'm going a little bit around in a circle here. I'm trying to find the words to make it as succinct as possible. But okay, so you've got like the recurrent laryngeal nerve, which controls the opening and the closing of the vocal folds, right? And then you've got the superior laryngeal nerve, which is kind of the nerve's external branch that controls like the cricothyroid muscle, which tenses the folds, raises pitch, that kind of thing. So again, damage to one or the other will change the voice, but they're functionally separate. Well, leadership is kind of the same, right? Versus management. Like you've got this nerve that is the ability to close a decision, the ability to seal a boundary, to end a meeting decisively, to be very clear about what should be happening, articulate. And then you've got this other management skill, which is like the ability to help people do more and reach a higher register when the stakes rise, when risk goes up, right? And yeah, a leader and a manager can have one without the other. Maybe they're decisive, but they're flat. There's no range. There's no dynamics. Right. Or maybe they're very, very dynamic, but nothing resolves. No tasks are ever achieved, no projects. So I'm always so fascinated about how the literal physiology of our instrument so closely is just like this little mini analogy for showing up as a leader and manager, and being able to understand the way that the voice works physically is a gateway to kind of expose where you might have some leadership gaps. Are your vocal folds coming together when you're saying hard things? Do we feel breath? Do we hear breath in the tone? Okay, tell me about the last couple times you had to like have a really hard conversation with a team member. How did that go? What was the resolution? Oh, well, we never really resolved that. Oh, tell me more about that. Tell me more about why it was left on kick the can.
Right.
And you can kind of see the ways that the voice is kind of giving micro clues to the way that the person processes relationship as a leader and manager. Not all the time. Like there's a very broad brush I'm painting with.
Right.
But it is interesting if you can make the connection in yourself. Like you said, we own the responsibility of knowing how we're showing up in a room when we're in leadership. When do I get nervous? When does my voice drop back? When do I start kind of adding in the little fillers, right? And making it less about don't say too much. But,
right.
Yeah. Why am I saying in the first place? What's happening?
Well, but I think so to this point, and I think this goes back to really thinking more about the context and the layers underneath what people are saying, right? Because if we were to perform authority and perform voice, we could give folks a book of things to say in a meeting. We could give people step by step. You should say this. You should run your meetings like this. You're having a one-on-one, a performance review. You're setting the vision, do these things. But the more powerful thing is to provide people with tools to interpret context in real time, right?
Which is what you're great at, by the way.
Well, thank you. But I do think, going back to this analogy of the voice as this amazing tool in your leadership system that allows you to communicate so much more because of the inherent context of how the voice works.
Yeah.
And I know people watching this are probably like, oh my gosh, this woman said so many things about laryngeal nerves. I don't speak this language. What's happening? But I do think there is something really valuable in helping people understand that you are able to, as you're listening to people, you are picking up on all of that subcontext.
Yeah.
And it's probably not being interpreted through words, right? Like you, and good example, just this week taught a session on trust and credibility. And we talked about listening as a necessary tool for building trusting relationships. So we started exploring, what are you listening for if you want other people to trust you? And this idea of listening for unmet needs, which are usually the things people are telling you without telling you.
Yeah.
Okay. But we've all had friends who we talk to who will get on the phone with us or on a call with us. And as soon as they get on, we notice something. As often we'll say, what's wrong? But they didn't say anything yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or just how they sighed or their body positioning or all of these things is still communicating so much context beyond any words that they could have articulated. And so for all of you listening to this who are like, I don't know where any of these nerves are, that's okay.
That's my job.
But I think it's important for people to remember that as a human being who feels things, you already know how to communicate this way.
Yeah.
You're already doing it and noticing it, even if you don't have the vocabulary and vernacular that a professionally trained singer and actor does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. It is true.
So, Michelle, I want to talk to you now about this idea of boundaries in these conversations, because I'm hearing leaders have so much responsibility looking for the controllables, looking for where they're leaning into leadership or leaning into management and these different skill sets and how they're activating their voice. But how do we support people around boundaries in terms of that responsibility? Because I do often get questions where people are like, great, I'm going to do all these things to support myself in the workplace, but that's not the culture of my work environment. Or that's not the particular leader I'm working with. They will not respect these boundaries, or they will. A couple of weeks ago, I talked a lot about this idea of verbal violence. Like the way they speak to me does not feel good. What do I do about that? Because you can't control what someone else is doing with their voice, right?
Indeed. Yeah. I hear like 3 questions in your one question.
Pick one.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think as the leader themselves, I think understanding that your physical voice operates within a construct of certain boundaries, breath flow, vocal fold closure, articulation, the resonant space you might create in your body, an intentional breath. When we understand what our physical limitations are in terms of using the voice, I think we can model taking care of the physical voice. If you are vocally tired and your body needs rest, rest. If the voice needs time to come back to itself, if you will, give it that time. If you don't know what to say, don't say anything.
Novel.
Right?
Yeah.
If you need to be more clear, be more literally articulate. Right? And then acknowledge that when you push your voice through, it is basically a little microcosm of you pushing yourself to do more than you can. So as a leader, our voice kind of also gives us like a little, like a canary in a mine, you know, about where we're at. Like you said, you call your friend and your friend goes, hey.
You're like, what happened?
Yeah. You're like, okay, what's going on? Right. I think when it comes to when you're seeing a leader like you're the team member and you're like, whoa, my leader is unaware. I think remembering, wow, this leader is unaware. They are unaware that what is happening right now is that I am experiencing what they don't want to tell me through their breath, through their tone, through all of this. And then again, controlling what only you can control, and take the responsibility to kind of listen, distance yourself. Maybe, yes, that person is supposed to be modeling for you. They're supposed to be the one giving permission. But maybe you're in a situation where you actually have to learn some self-determination, and where you're the person who has to make the choice about where you feel competent, where you feel powerful, where you feel connected, and where you feel like you are making the choices that you need to make for you. And you realize that just because a person has that role, that they might be in a place where they're still just performing.
Yeah.
Because they haven't really learned how to embody authority yet. And maybe have some curiosity, have some compassion, and maybe say something.
Ooh. Okay.
But
well,
how you say something
right?
will
I'm like, that's
matter.
A whole other, I'm like, oh boy. Because people are like, ooh, what do I say? And I'm like, don't get all tied up in the words. Like, get all the way like together first.
Yeah,
And then
get all the way. Like,
get all the way together.
Yeah. I got to just
that.
leave that little bomb at the end.
I know. I'm like, oh, look what you did. Look what you did. But all really, really valid points. I think yes to all of it. And of course, these conversations that we have here are only 30 minutes. And I always remind folks, a conversation is a living thing. So this dialogue that we had here today, we didn't start at the beginning, and this is not the end. So please continue thinking about these things, processing these ideas, sharing them with other people, processing them with some other people, and then putting them out in the world to see how they feel in your body and in your life, because that's where the juice is, right? But Michelle, thank you so much for joining me today for this snippet of a conversation about voice as embodied leadership. I think we covered a lot of ground. I know I will be going back and listening to this again myself and looking up all of the big words that you used about vocal anatomy.
I hope I said them right in the right order, because I'm like, this is so much. How do I parse what I'm going to say?
So many things. But this was amazing. And of course, if you are curious to learn more about this idea of embodied voice, Michelle exists on the interwebs. She's a real life person. You can reach out to her. You can find her on Instagram at the SpeakEasy Cooperative, or on LinkedIn at Michelle Markwart Deveaux. Again, amazing human. I highly recommend. And of course, I encourage all of you to continue this conversation. You can come back and watch this again. If you have questions, if something hits you in your feels, we would love to know what resonated for you. You can leave us a comment, a question. I do check them. We will get back to you. And then, of course, if this was valuable content and useful for you, please like and subscribe, because it's free and it supports small businesses. And that's the kind of person you want to be in the world, hopefully. But thank you for joining me, Michelle. This is it. We're signing off for this episode of The Resonant Leader, and we will see you all next week, where I will be joined with my beautiful friend, Rabiat Anakute Arufu, who will be talking to us about energy and resonance as resistance. So really excited to get into that. She is a Reiki master, and so we'll be talking more about how that works as we think about leadership. That's all for now, folks. What did they say? Turn the TV off, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.